Subscribe, fuckers. Now let's get in the video. The Violent History of Boston. A tale of conflict and survival. Boston, a city rich in history and known for its revolutionary spirit, is often celebrated as the birthplace of American liberty. But beneath its patriotic facade lies a darker, blood-soaked history. A history marked by conflict, rebellion, and the struggle for power. Today we delve into the violent events that shaped Boston and left an indelible mark on its identity. The Boston Massacre. Let's begin in 1770. A time when Boston was a fucking hotbed of tension. The American colonies were growing restless under British rule. And nowhere was this unrest more palpable than in Boston. The city was occupied by British soldiers, whose presence served as a constant reminder of colonial subjugation. These soldiers were not welcomed by the locals, and conflicts between them and the citizens of Boston became increasingly common. On the night of March 5, 1770, a small altercation escalated into what we now know as the Boston Massacre. A lone British soldier was harassed by a group of colonists, who pelted him with snowballs and insults. Reinforcements arrived, but the situation spiraled out of control. The crowd grew larger and more hostile, and amidst the chaos, British soldiers opened fire on the unarmed colonists. 5 men were killed, including Crispus Attucks, a man of African and Native American descent, who is often remembered as the first casualty of the American Revolution. The event sent shockwaves through the colonies. Though it was a relatively small skirmish, it symbolized something much larger: the growing resentment toward British authority. It also sparked a wave of propaganda, as figures like Paul Revere used dramatic imagery and accounts to stoke revolutionary fervor. The Boston Massacre was not just a moment of violence. It was a catalyst for change. Gangs and organized crime in the 19th century. As the years passed, Boston transformed from a colonial town into a bustling industrial city. But with progress came new challenges. The 19th century saw waves of immigrants arriving in Boston, particularly Irish and Italian families, who fled famine, poverty, and oppression in their homelands. While many sought a better life, they were met with discrimination and harsh living conditions. These struggles created fertile ground for organized crime. During this period, gangs became a significant force in Boston's underworld. The Irish-dominated Dead Rabbits and their rivals, the Bowery Boys, were among the most notorious. Their violent clashes spilled into the streets, creating an atmosphere of fear and chaos. These gangs often fought over territory, but their battles were not just physical. They represented the struggle of immigrant communities to establish themselves in a city that often treated them as outsiders. Boston's law enforcement struggled to maintain order, as corruption within the police force allowed certain gangs to thrive. By the late 19th century, the city's streets were not just a place of opportunity, but a battlefield where survival often depended on allegiance to the right group. The Great Boston Police Strike of 1919. The early 20th century brought new forms of unrest. In 1919, Boston faced a crisis unlike any it had seen before: the Great Boston Police Strike. Police officers in the city were overworked and underpaid, earning less than many laborers despite working long hours. When their calls for fair wages and improved working conditions went unanswered, the officers decided to take a stand. Their strike, however, left Boston vulnerable. With no police presence, the city descended into chaos. Looting, rioting, and violence spread through the streets, and residents were left to fend for themselves. The situation grew so dire that Governor Calvin Coolidge called in the National Guard to restore order. While the strike highlighted the legitimate grievances of the officers, it ended in disaster for them. None of the striking officers were reinstated, and their movement failed to achieve its goals. This event was a turning point in labor relations and governance, as it showcased the fine line between standing up for workers' rights and maintaining public order. The mob wars of the 20th century. Boston's violent history would take another turn in the mid-20th century with the rise of organized crime syndicates. By this time, the Irish and Italian communities had become well established in the city, but they were also locked in a fierce battle for dominance over Boston's criminal underworld. The Irish-American Winter Hill Gang, led by figures like James "Whitey" Bulger, became one of the most infamous criminal organizations in Boston's history. Whitey Bulger, in particular, was a ruthless and cunning leader who ruled the streets with fear. He was responsible for countless murders and extortions, and his reign of terror lasted for decades. Bulger's story took a darker turn when it was revealed that he had been acting as an informant for the FBI, using his relationship with law enforcement to eliminate rivals and protect his own empire. His betrayal of allies and manipulation of the system exposed a web of corruption that shocked the city and the nation. Bulger's eventual arrest in 2011, after years on the run, marked the end of an era, but his legacy continues to haunt Boston. The busing crisis of the 1970s. In the 1970s, Boston once again became a flashpoint for violence, this time over the issue of school desegregation. The court-ordered busing program, which aimed to integrate Boston's public schools, was met with fierce resistance, particularly in predominantly white neighborhoods like South Boston. The program required students to be bused across the city, often into hostile territory, to achieve racial balance. The backlash was immediate and violent. Protesters hurled rocks and bricks at buses carrying black students, while fights broke out in schools and on the streets. The busing crisis revealed deep racial divides in Boston, with many residents unwilling to confront the city's history of segregation and inequality. The violence of this period left scars that some argue are still visible today, as Boston continues to grapple with issues of race and class, modern violence, and the spirit of resilience. Even in the 21st century, Boston has not escaped tragedy. The Boston Marathon bombing in 2013 was a stark reminder of the violence that can strike even in moments of celebration. The attack, carried out by two brothers, killed 3 people and injured hundreds more, shaking the city to its core. Yet, in the aftermath of the bombing, Boston showed its true character. The phrase "Boston Strong" became a rallying cry, symbolizing the city's resilience and determination to overcome adversity. While Boston's history is marked by violence, it is also defined by its ability to endure, rebuild, and grow stronger. Conclusion: a city forged by conflict. Boston's history is not an easy one. From the streets of colonial America to the mob wars of the 20th century, the city has been shaped by violence, rebellion, and struggle. But through it all, Boston has remained a place of hope, resilience, and community. Its violent past serves as a reminder of the challenges it has faced, while its enduring spirit points to a brighter future. Boston is more than just a city. It is a testament to the power of perseverance and the belief that even in the darkest times, we can rise above. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Boston's violent history. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more explorations into the past. Let me know in the comments what city or topic you'd like me to cover next. Until next time, stay curious and stay strong. Make sure you subscribe